You're listening to Force Majeure, an actual play Star Wars podcast. My name is Adam and I'm your host, and today's episode will be brought to you after this question from our characters.
Hey Titus, do you want to make a baby? I mean, we did one in a jar a while ago and that one didn't work out so well and it was kind of sad, but I mean, look at all these kids. You can have babies. Does Corrine want babies? I'd make a great uncle. Let's make babies!
I mean, you would make a great uncle, Roy. I mean, that goes without saying. Because you've made a great brother to me, and you'll make a great nanny to these squalling mini-docs while we're here. I'll be honest though, like, I don't really see the point of children.
Oh, well, let me explain. You see, without the small people, you don't get the big people.
Aye, but there's so many other people making the big people. I just not interested in that. Like, the things I like to make, I understand. You know, I understand how things go together in ships or vehicles or guns or armour. I understand how things work in droids. I understand how droids' minds work. I suppose that's the closest I'll come to making children, is that programming a droid brain with just enough of a spark to give it that push so it can then become its own person. That's that I get, but like people, I don't know. Like, it's not something I've ever really thought about. It's no life goal for me. Calween, I don't know, you know. Like, Ugnaughts are really clannish. You know, they like the Doc here, I suppose, and like Rissik's family, you know, they are big on their clan and their people and that sort of thing, so maybe he would. But again, like, would he want a baby with me? Because any child that we have, well, we'll have to adopt, because neither of us have really got the equipment to gestate and carry to term. But, like, would he want a child with me? I don't know. I think having kids ties you down to a certain lifestyle, and that is no a lifestyle I want. It ties you down to a certain level of responsibility, maybe, you know. Whereas all my children, like TBC and like the other droids I've built, they can protect themselves pretty much.
Sometimes I wonder if perhaps you're overwhelmed by the concept of something that you can't control and understand like a machine, because organic beings don't really live by the same set of rules, whereas if you understand machinery, you kind of know the input is going to result in a certain output. But hey, it's something to consider as we get older as a family, huh?
And he just elbows you in the ribs and walks off.
Oh!
Here is a question to ruin your day. Bye!
Do you want to build an android?
Also, Ed, for the record, small nuts and bolts and things are going to start being gathered by Roy for a personal project.
Okay.
Just bear that in mind.
I'd also like to make it known that before we go anywhere near any thermal caves or anything, I would very, very diplomatically asking Roy to turn out his pockets and making sure he's not adopting one of my kids.
How big do you think Roy's pockets are? He's not a bender.
I don't steal kids. There's like loads of them running wild that need a home. Why would I take yours?
And before we get on to all of that, just for the sake of our lovely listeners, hi, my name's Ed Fortune. I'm the DM, the GM, the person who keeps this chaos barely controlled. Really, that's Adam. And talking about Adam and the rest of my lovely friends, can you please introduce yourselves, starting with Adam?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm playing Tychus Bar, a bestless guardian armourer who's currently confused about his life prospects.
Hi, I'm Mim. I play Roy, a modified B1 battle droid who is very interested in the prospects of life prospects. I have a career as a hired gun and a specialization as a bodyguard and heavy. I also have an obligation to the Bar family to make him breed. Not that last part, but I do have an obligation to the Bar family.
I mean, arguably, yes, because it's the family. The family must continue.
Hi, I'm Ross. I play Dr. Smex Karam Dedalawa, He's a Syrian consular healer. His emotional strength is his compassion. His weakness is his obstinacy. He's a family man who hasn't let anything stop him so far except his own fear.
Hi, I'm Mikey. I play Kay. He's a human Starfighter Racer Turo Striker. And I honestly forgot we were recording for a second there. We were chatting away about babies, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing a podcast. So,
Babies.
Do you want to build a life form? Do you want to see it grow? Can you imagine having all the fun, giving it its own first gun?
So where we left off the last session, we had a kind of Iron Man workshop moment where a massive, what was quite clearly formerly a distillery, has been converted into a collection of hobbyist technology gathered by a technological pack rat who's had access to a great deal of resources and has used that as an excuse to get all the toys they like the look of, and has presented this to Tychus, who themselves is a bit of a technological pack rat. This session is one of those ones where we kind of break down into small bits where the players take time for their characters to breathe, figure out what they're going to do next as they prepare for a big mission somewhere on the world of Syria, which is going to quite clearly be a race against the Empire.
I mean, I have conversations that I would like to have with my wives, in particular when the rest of the group are not present, because these will be of a Syrian nature.
So at some point during the Brandian conversation, there will be a conversation with your wives about the selection of wife number 5. They all have an idea as to who it should be, and they haven't really talked to you about it yet.
I mean, I'm hoping this is after the Brandian wife, where Roy has been properly introduced to the kids, where Tychus is starting tinkering, and where Kay is doing whatever Kay is doing, and it's, you know, this conversation is not for their ears.
Sitting in a dark room listening to The Cure.
yeah.
To go into what the estate is like, it is large. There are lots and lots of different rooms. It has that kind of, as I said, that kind of techno art deco class is the best way to describe it. It's clearly money has been spent here. It's kept very clean. It is mostly full of the family. There are also some staff who work here, but they also live here. So it's like, and you get the general kind of like a family vibe of, you know, people who are. There's money here because everyone is working for a collective good, if you see what I mean. It's less a kind of like, we are aristocratic, and more like, we all work together to contribute to each other. So, you know, this is almost a village just in a very large box, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, there's value in cultivation. It's not necessarily in financial terms, but it would be if anywhere else.
Yes.
If it was ever sold to something, it would be.
But the state would never allow that, and it's the very kind of rural kind of palatial estate. And on that, the places for the kids are lovingly detailed. So the playrooms, the space for the children, like the priority of everyone here is to make sure that the kids have the best possible education and the best possible access. So you've got that whole thing where you've got like rooms that are made out to look like castles. You've got rooms that are full of like toys, but also tools. It's one of those kind of, anyone else would describe it as spoiled to almost to an extent, but not really, because there are quite a few children. How is Roy coping with this sort of resource?
He's actually thrilled because with this amount of resources, you get to see every child's unique approach to it. And also, he gets to see every kid's approach to him experiencing it in a new way, things that he hasn't been able to do or use because we don't have these kind of resources. So when he asks them, what kind of things are you interested in? He's like, cool, I want to go research, tell me more. So he's really enjoying them telling him what they're interested in, and particularly the workshop, which he keeps going back to. And he tries to engage all the kids in this little building project that he's got an idea for, in making a bit of a miniature version of himself with less of the higher functioning capacities built in, but with lots of space to add future input into it. So those who are interested in, you know, different cultures around the world, or those who are interested in finding out about people, he wants their input as to what he thinks people are interested in. And they sing songs about what they think people should be or what's good about people. Or at least he sings songs, and I imagine it takes a while for some of the kids to go with that. Those who like building and engineering, cool. Those who are younger can draw the designs, and he is enthusiastic about everything. And it's not just, well, I'll look after the kids. He's basically going into the kids' world and going, wow, this is amazing. Show me your world. Show me what you're doing. So anybody who is watching Roy will just see a bunch of kids running around with Roy going, that's amazing, as they run past one room. And then a thundering charge of more kids as they've run off to another thing going, I've got an idea.
Just something to add on to that in context, because while we've got these weeks and the doc is around his kids and so on, you will notice the doc isn't just familiar with the kids on a general level. He's also, this used to be the place where he grew up, and he was raised here as well. So there's a generational level to the space and the play area. Also, simply because it's Saria and that's the nature of the world run. Most of these kids are daughters. If that makes any difference at all. It won't make any difference at all to the way Roy approaches this, I'm sure, but
do you have sons, though? And are they treated differently? Are they aware of their higher importance? Does that affect how they are?
It's up to yourself, Ross, if you want to have a son and how your son is being raised.
I imagine there's going to be, there will be a son somewhere, but yeah, not raised at this stage in life, not raised that differently, but they will probably be aware there are expectations of them. Is not necessarily the right way of phrasing it. It probably is the right way of phrasing it. Their life is going to be slightly different simply because there's fewer of them.
There's slightly more panic when a male 5-year-old runs into a wall.
Yeah.
Just because they're only 5% of the population. So it's like, because they are preciously rare, even though it's like, that's normal for kids, there's that. It's up to the doc if they're slightly more, but they'll be fine. Or if they're, a slightly more kind of sort of panic going on just because they are so vanishingly rare.
I don't want to parentify the dozen this, but everyone's going to chip into keeping the whole pack singing together, playing together. So I imagine there's a certain aspect of not so much they're mothering him or anything like that, but the girls are aware just how rare their brother is.
Tima, by the way, radiates approval as you do this. You get the general feeling that one of the things that Tima seems to really desperately want to make sure that the kids are aware of is that droids are just people, if you see what I mean. And there's this general, because it's the doc and because it's the doc's family, they're good people, and they want to make sure that they don't raise Imperial citizens, essentially. So now that they have an opportunity that there is a droid who wants to spend time with the kids, they're like, this is great. But when they go out into the galaxy, they won't be surprised how different the galaxy is.
You will notice that throughout your house, random pictures start appearing of their dad standing on top of a space whale with a big broom and bucket and mop, or their dad glowing, as Roy has clearly been telling them simplified, sweeter stories about things. So there's one of you in a big temple with a huge stack of books, or us running away from clearly a scary monster, but it's like a big blue blobby green blur kind of monster, nothing we've actually dealt with. So you can tell that he's kind of bigging you up, and sometimes the kids might walk past you and be like, wow, as they go off.
The kids are also quite interrogative in the sense that because they're Syrian and they have 2 brains, they're incredibly intelligent. It's not just like, why is that? It's like, why is that? What is its classification? How has it adapted to its environment? And these are like kids who are just asking, they ask their like slightly next level of questions just because their brains are going at 100 miles an hour. And they might not, they're not really listening to the answers. The younger ones certainly aren't, but they kind of, there's this hunger to learn as much as they can. So like you have them even the teenagers are utterly fascinated with you because you are good with kids.
Cool. I'm definitely going to end up having one of my legs, something that doesn't have a gun in it, disassembled and put back together. I just know it. But no, Roy is having a great time not being in anybody's way and giving people more time to do stuff. And he's actually really enjoying it because he's been being the little brother in a way to Tychus for quite a while. As Tychus's development surpassed Roy's development, in humanity, and the roles switched in a way. So now he gets to be kind of the big brother again, and the caregiver, the person who can help people find answers, but in a bigger family, which is brilliant. And just, yeah, he's having lots of fun. So yeah, thanks for this. This is a lot of fun for me, just picturing all the crazy things. It's like, what was that?
I don't know, but we're gonna go catch it. Do you go swimming in your pools?
It's a decorative pool. What are you doing?
Cannonball!
Koi flying everywhere. Do we want to go to the dock next?
We can.
So Sadie has, like, you're spending time with all your wives. We'll gloss over some of that because it's not that sort of show. But Sadie specifically has you on their medical table more than once, and the second time they seem to be quite concerned. What is it that you're doing?
I'm in the minute lying down on a table, but I will have shared in more medical detail what the sorts of experiences I think I've had over the last year, because I've been in a space whale, because my head's been glowing after the exposure to exotic matter, because I'm force sensitive and I didn't know that before. And some of that is, okay, what's happening to me? And some of that is, do we need to keep an eye on the kids in case, the force sensitive is presumably, passes from, is hereditary. Is that something we need to worry about as a family?
So Sadie shares with you some of their theories. They describe you as rotten spaceborne parasites, and what this seems to be microorganisms that feed on exotic energies. The more exotic the energy, the more you get, if you see what I mean. So if you work in a weird sort of atomic chamber, then you get this kind of odd, weird kind of cosmic infection. If you use the Force, which is an energy source, you get this thing.
Right, so if Sadie's sticking me inside an MRI chamber or equivalent at the minute, is that feeding me, essentially?
No, because it's not weird enough. It needs to be really, really weird.
Okay.
But you've been in a space whale, you've been through a cross-dimensional portal thing, you've been dipped into these things, you are rotten with this. And her concerns are quite broad. Her research for this was pulled immediately as soon as it came up. Wasn't allowed to research it, which is why they're researching it so hard.
Right. And
they have now started taking pains to get all of this research just taken off any database that is public. Because she's like, I'm very concerned that this could be used to find our children and find you and find your friends. This is just, this is nature. Of course you're going to have indications of ability. Things will feed on things. That's how nature works. I don't think transmission works the way you think it does. I don't think it's genetic. I think there's something else. I don't know what that else is. I can't find any markers. Certainly it's not through the parasitic. It's not through infection. I've performed tests on models, and it doesn't. You can't take these parasites and put them... They just die. They just starve. So it can't be that. You certainly... Can you try using some of your abilities while you're in this machine?
I can try. I'm thinking the Force Heal is going to be the one the doc's going to be slightly more practiced in. So let's find the nearest kid who's just run into something and see if we can borrow them for a minute.
It takes about 15 minutes, but yes, it takes a
It's all right. We weren't asking Roy to, force a volunteer or anything like that.
It takes a short while, but eventually, at some point during the course of a couple of days, one of the children does, decide to do a gravitational experiment and fall off a thing.
I have one light side point and one dark side point. I will use the light side point to heal my kid.
So yes, one of your children decides to use the slide thing that it's not intended, and spectacularly grazes their knee and their forehead, like their whole forehead. So it's a bit, if you see what I mean. And you go over, and there is just a moment of hushed revelation, and you're not sure which daughter it is, but it's like, Daddy is magic.
I mean, we are carrying said daughter to this MRI chamber so that we can record the results of this thing.
Yes, but still, as you heal your child, the results are basically kind of weirdly inconclusive, because as with all the scanners and all the devices and all the bits and pieces, the symbiotic or parasitic organisms that within you feed as you call upon that energy, they don't do anything to the effect you're having. Sadie is at a bit of a loss. They basically look at that and go, okay, so we know that the Force works. We know that you're exchanging energies, you're drawing energies from somewhere. We don't know what that energy is. That energy is very hard to detect. We can detect everything else it's doing, but not where the energy is coming from. We would need more research. There's probably tools, resonant crystals might do it. Fiddles again, and it's part of the same healing role, but like you heal the forehead first and then you heal the knee. They do a little bit more work.
There's a lot more forehead than there is knee.
There's a lot more forehead. And it's, I think we can, if they're standing still and we have a machine about the size of a speeder bike, we could probably detect force use at close range.
Right.
This gets into not my specialism.
No, I mean, at this point, I want to know whether just am I healthy to be around the kids for long periods and the basics of that.
I don't think you're infectious or radioactive. I don't think you're harmful. I think this is a natural process. It's just a process we don't understand properly. My concerns are that some of these parasites might, in greater concentrations, cause psychological effects. You might hallucinate. You might be inclined to megalomania. But we can fix that. And she takes essentially a hypo spray. There you go. That will reduce that sort of presence.
Okay.
Shouldn't affect your abilities. So you perform a bunch of experiments. Essentially, you have a tool where you can do a medical test on someone now, and you can identify, organisms that are attracted to exotic energy, which will let you figure out the force. You also now have the working theory is how you could detect that energy on its own. So you have those two things that are kind of useful, which might provide you with like a blue dye in one or two circumstances, depending. What else would you like to try while you have access to your family and your family's resources?
I mean, we're just going to have a playful afternoon with it. Let's just try anything we've thought we've heard that a Jedi might have been able to do in a legend. Let me just see if I can put my mind to it and see if anything happens. I'm not sure it's anything I need to roll the dice for. It's just going to be, let's try moving stuff. Jedi can move stuff, right?
Yep. So you fail to move stuff. Maybe it needs to be moving, and she throws something at you,
and it hits me in the head. And
Tima is walking past and joins in. And
everybody
helps.
throws stuff at me. It's one of those things.
Roy sneaks up behind you, turns all the lights off, and shakes you.
I mean, that has worked in the past.
What is it that we're trying to achieve?
Just glows.
At this point, the kids are just marvelling at this idea of this is how scientific experiments really work.
I mean, the darker version of that, for a glow stick to work, you have to break it. So
I know, but I've already realised that breaking people's spines normally doesn't work for anything after that. And just in case anyone was wondering, any puppet shows performed with these kids are a lot safer for work than the previous puppet shows that we did.
Yeah, I was going to say, the last puppet show you did was slightly gruesome. I'm not really sure the doc's ethically minded to try force in. It's like a gentle suggestion to one of his kids, go tidy your room, but maybe that's as far as he's willing to try.
Roll the force dice if you're going to force influence your children. I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Do you call upon the dark side?
The kids and the wives and Roy are around to, make sure this doesn't go too dark, I'm hoping.
Eat your vegetables.
Well, there's 2 light side and 2 dark side points.
Are you spending the dark side points to psychically corrupt your child, or are you...
Not if I've got any say on it, no. I'm guiding and shaping them with science and encouragement.
Right. So you're going to absolutely lose an entire day talking to the other adults about the use of that ability.
Yes.
It's going to be a conversation.
You're not doing that to the kids anymore.
It's basically I think you're all on the same page with that conclusion, but there's and it's a whole day. And they dial in Padua, because it's just as important. It's like, right, you can do that. Oh, that's really interesting. Never do that to any of us ever. Yes. The short version. With Sadie fairly confident that she'd be able to tell as well and figure it out. So, not that we're saying that you would, but...
I mean, the only other one on the list that's going to generate any results at the moment is going to be a force seek. So let's try and do something more productive with that, and let's just do something like, let's find a temple that's going to be of interest to us in the near future.
Okay.
We could just practice hiding your wallet if that's part of the experiment, or are you actually doing a big thing now?
Let's start with something small, let's work up to something big.
Oh
Oh my gosh! Best game of hide and seek ever!
Roy, lose this wallet somewhere on the premises.
Lose this child somewhere on the premises.
No. We've had that discussion. That one's not happening. This is going to be a family heirloom or something, not a person.
Okay, so make me a sick roll.
Okay, that's 2 dark side points. For the interest of science, we are going to test it. We're going to say, I think it's down by the lake, next to that fountain that looks like that weird granddad of mine. The one with the extra tall head. Roy kept a record of where he lost it, right?
Well, I didn't want you to be able to cheat by like reading my mind or something, so I kind of just forgot.
Oh dear.
No, it's lost.
Okay, great.
Wait, it was in my leg all along. It's fine. I got it.
Hooray! That will have definitely been an interesting day.
So, do you try that again? Do you try that again for the actual mission ahead of time, or?
We've got plenty of time to do it, so I'm going to try and work on it because something happened. It wasn't pleasant. I'm sure there was a strain involved, but
So I'm going to rule that after concentrating on that ability for a while, and a scene that is not unlike the one from the original Ghostbusters movie with the Xena cards, after a while you start to figure out that you can locate things that are close by and local, and at some point during that kind of almost montage of refining that power, you get a notion as to where this temple is, and you are overcome with a sense of danger. And the vision that comes to you, and it's like it's more like a, how does the doc do this? Does the doc kind of just like go into a meditative trance? Do they get out a map and a crystal? What is their method for seeing?
I mean, I'm sort of picturing that he's going to try and find something, a familiar pattern of working with things. So if it was something like his wallet or his keys, where he goes, right, keys, it sort of slaps pockets and things and just sort of gets into a slightly anxious mindset of trying to find this thing. With something that's that far away, I imagine he's going to be looking at a map and just going, okay, can I get any anxious sense of where on this map, like I've forgotten where this thing might have been, and try to tune into where on this map looks familiar so a lot of the map will obviously look familiar because it's his home grounds, but on a galactic scale, he's never had to look at it in this kind of detail before, and it's sort of an anxious slapping pockets. Okay, temple, even though he's not been there before.
Because you have time, I'm not going to go with the roll, and you're only going on the light side of the Force, I'm assuming. So you are pulled towards it, but the things that you realise is, also looking at the map, that this is built into a not entirely dormant volcanic mass. The entrance that you can see in your mind's eye is a caldera, essentially, one that's buried, but it's essentially a volcanic mass that has over the years been kind of obscured by other structures. But going into this, like, it's hot. But as you get there, you get a vision of, and you've been to this sort of temple before, it's the same structure as you have seen in the past. And there is a feeling of foreboding and danger.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't sound specific enough to, make suggestions to Tychus on the kind of things we might be facing, but it's helpful to know that we know something's
hot and high pressure and volcanic would be the key words you might want to take away from this.
Okay, I will relay those at the earliest opportunity so we can be prepared on the assumption that any of that turns out to be accurate.
Okay. Mikey.
Hello.
Are we okay to explore what Kay is doing during this time?
Okay, so there's a few different things. We'll start with the least important ones. I'm going to spend a bit of time on very open databases, finding out exactly who General Kenobi was.
Ooh. On very open databases.
Yeah, the man's a war hero. I'm sure there'll be something on him. He doesn't need to. I don't need to know he's on Tatooine, but I'd like to know he existed and he was a person. Maybe there's a picture of him somewhere.
I imagine the propaganda for him at the moment, because he was a general of the Republic and fundamental to the founding. So I imagine that they have spun it that he's still a war hero, hidden the Jedi aspects, and then and he died gloriously during.
Make me an education check, please, if you don't mind. Difficulty, it's just the one, and you can have an additional blue for access to resources and time.
Okay, just 1 second.
Just thinking out loud while you're rolling,
Yeah.
we are on Saria, which had known Jedis and probably aren't quite towing the Imperial line, so they may also have a little bit more than you'd get on, say, Coruscant.
Oh, just an advantage. It's all, in fact, all of the dice that I rolled are blank apart from one advantage.
So, with the advantage, you find that he was a war hero.
Mm-hmm.
They were human. The advantage gives you access to a holo novel.
Yeah.
Which is a salacious holo novel about his romantic. He's like this romantic figure, dies tragically, but like, you know, romances space pirates, and
It's called The Higher Ground. I understand it, yeah.
it's the higher ground, and it's this tale of like, it feels like the version of this person is totally not who this person is, if you see what I mean.
Oh, that's fine. Before I go to bed every night, I read a few chapters.
It's Flashman-esque,
Yeah.
in its style. So they're cad and they're dishonourable and all the rest of it, but they're constantly betraying it never mentions Jedi, it never mentions the
Yeah.
Force.
So moving away from that, because that was just an idle thing. That's not. I don't need to go into too much of the thing. Looking in a little bit more of a investigative way, I want to have a look and see if I can find out anything on either Pantaran or Chiss Imperial officers.
Oh, okay.
That is not going to be as vague. That I'm going to ask one of. I'm going to ask people around the area, one of his wives, the kids, if I can have access to something to investigate who this might have been, because I feel that we've got the wrong person.
Is this like a skullduggery or a computers or a warfare role? What direction are you going in here?
Any of those would be good. I think possibly warfare, because it's probably I'm trying to use my old pass, for example, to see if I can get in to see if anything. But I'm not looking at anything particularly dodgy. I'm just seeing if I can get access to look in to see. Because I'm part of the Imperial Empire. I know blue people were fairly rare as any level of higher up. So, but I don't feel that it's probably not something that will set off alarms, other than the fact that I've tried to log in.
And you run this through Tima first, who's the head of the household. Yeah. So Tima's like very glad that you mentioned it to her in the first place.
Yeah. No, this is more serious, so it gets definitely checked by everybody.
And then there is a private console. You're actually taken off the site, so like away from the estate. It's just like half an hour to.
Yeah.
Or like, again, it's another shack in the middle of nowhere, and you open you pull open a thing, and there's fairly advanced equipment.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Kay's a little bit nervous when he goes out there. If he'd have seen there was tarp on the floor, he'd have go for his gun, because I asked a bit about somebody in Imperial, and they take me to a shack in the woods. It's a little.
Yes, that's 100% what happens. And there's a kind of like another someone that you've not met before as well, with a toothless grin, and then they look at you and you realise that they're still carrying some sort of blaster rifle, and then they pull the top and it's a console and it's fine. Everyone giggles. So you can have that. I'm going to reduce the difficulty down to just 2, and I'm going to give you 2 blue as well.
Cool. This is not my strength, so every little will help. I don't know why, but I kind of want to convince you to turn one of those into a red, because something might go very, very wrong. So weirdly, that's all right. That's no advantages, but 2 successes.
This takes a couple of days. And the initial things that you find don't tell you anything. You find a lot about various Pantarans.
Yep.
And then you're introduced to a kind of, it's a part of the HoloNet that's just text and the occasional attached image. This is very much kind of like a dump area of information.
Space Reddit.
Space Reddit, basically. Space paste bin, almost. And you're going through it, and there is a story of a Pantaran with a red lightsaber, described by the writer. The describer describes it as one of those evil Jedi abducting children.
Sounds like a normal Jedi.
And they are described as Agent 17, and some descriptions are Brother 17. So yes, you get a name and an image, and the image is definitely who you saw. It's black and white, but you're pretty sure that's like that they're blue because they've got the big Pantaran eyes.
Okay.
17 is also spelt like it's a name rather than it's a number, but you're fairly sure that it's meant to be a number.
Gotcha. I'll pass that around to everybody else as they're doing stuff. So those are the two little things that I want to do. The big thing I want to do is I want to interact with Ruhr's lightsaber. First, the thing I want to do is see if I can communicate with Ruhr after he went away to see if he's still there and connected to the lightsaber or connected to myself.
Okay.
Do I get any sort of contact with him?
It takes you a while, and then Ruhr appears in your mind's eye.
Yes.
I just wanted to know if you were still there.
Yes. You've banished me into bogs. I can be released at any time. What assistance do you need from me?
I don't. I just wanted to know where we were. We're at temple number 2. Temple number 3 and temple number 4. We'll need to know where they are. I have, and he spreads the crystals out on the table and puts the holocron down. I have a number of things in front of me here. What do I need to do to find where we go next?
Take the holocron. Rotate the cube should change into a triangle and then change into a hexagon.
Oh yeah, I can
It's a
do
geometric puzzle. Wait until it turns purple.
Yes.
And then feel it with the force. Reach out into it.
Right. We thought that maybe one of these was a crystal for a lightsaber. Is that true? Because we have an empty lightsaber.
They can all be processed if you have the correct tools. Did you retrieve the tool from the temple?
Oh, is that what that is? Oh, it's a kyber crystal shaver.
It's a little bit more than that.
Oh.
The one you should be able to inscribe. The force permeates everything, but gathers in certain places. You are a pool of where the force gathers. By making the right incisions and learning how to do so, the right craft, by cutting a crystal in a certain way, you can make it a kyber crystal. Cutting a crystal in a certain way, you can turn it into anything, any alignment you need. There is a myth, very much amongst the younger Jedi and the Sith, that all kyber crystals can be turned. They can be corrupted and turned evil, and it's a crude way of doing that. Any crystal can be any form you wish if you know how to cut it right.
Is this crystal, he holds up the lightsaber that he's got, evil?
It's aligned to the darker side of the Force.
How do I unalign it to the darker side of the Force?
You break it.
I can do that.
What would you achieve? What would you wish to achieve while still maintaining power? You could take it apart entirely, remove the crystal, and create something of your own. Right? You could leave it the way it is.
Don't think I have the capability to make anything like that. I'm drowning in a pool of lore and hearsay. I have no idea what's going on. Every time I pick this up, it's heavy. And I don't necessarily feel that there's no point in being a good person, or at least doing good things, if you turn yourself into a bad person while you're doing it.
I think you're hopelessly naive and foolish.
Yep. But if it helps, I became hopelessly naive and foolish by murdering thousands and thousands of people. So maybe I'm just idealistic.
If you cannot wield the blade, it is useless to you, and if you are dead, you are useless to me. I will help you create a blade if you wish. I will help you modify a blade if you wish.
Yeah.
If you wish to butcher that one, it is a waste.
I'll come back to you. I have other things. You can go away now. That was literally Kay going, yeah, he's being all pompous. I don't actually need him all the time. You can go away.
Yeah. Well, no, he is pompous.
Yeah. And the rest of the time I'm going to spend with the holocron, see if we can find out where the next temples are.
One of the worlds is Alderaan.
Yep.
And one of the worlds is Yavin.
Okay.
Best get to Alderaan quick.
No, we got plenty of time. Got that one after Yavin. Okay, that's all I really need. Other than the fact that he's going to spend a fair bit of time practicing with the lightsaber to try and almost like attune to it. I know it's evil, but if he can use it without going into the darker side of things by clicking it further round to, then he wants to try and get used to it. I mean, he's become an Atara striker, and he has a certain way of flowing with the lightsaber. It's just, we've got a lovely setting, which the locations budget probably spent a lot of money on. Why don't we have Kay waving a lightsaber around in a Regency garden, something like that. I think it'll look good in the film.
Scatters lots of lovely and exotic-looking special effects birds everywhere.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Because you asked and because you're looking at it, the other lightsaber essentially it has a mode where it can be used as a trainee lightsaber, so it's a spare lightsaber. It can be used, you can extend the blade, you can use it as kind of the trainee Jedi lightsaber one, if you see it with the starter lightsaber almost.
Yep.
However, what it's really for is you focus the blade and it cuts, it'll cut anything.
Yeah.
And you get the feeling whilst you connect to it, it leaps into your connection to the Force. And it's very much like you're not very crafty. You're not very good with your hands. But like if you wanted to cut something that's in your mind, in your will, you can. That's the old cliche about sculptors know that they're just releasing the thing that's inside the stone. You get that very much using this tool. It's like it wants to be used to make things or to cut things away.
After about 3 days of not wanting to do something, I'm going to take one of the crystals and I'm going to make myself a kyber crystal. I'm going to make myself a crystal I think would be able to go into this lightsaber. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go and find Tychus and say, I've made this, can you put it inside this? And there's going to, I imagine, going to be a fair few rolls on that. So if you want to leave that until...
we'll probably do that as a little extra for the listeners.
Yeah.
For the rules itself. But yes, it takes some time and effort. Just for right now, however, can you just roll me your Force dice?
Yeah, of course. Too light.
What colour would you like the crystal to be at the end? What does it look like?
It's like kind of like a turquoisey light blue.
So the crystal that you're crafting is like glows with this light, and you cut away. You feel like you're cutting away darkness, almost like shaving off the. It's very cathartic.
Yes, and I'll spend as long as that takes. I mean, that could take all of the time, to be honest.
And it also looks really cool because we get to pan out of this kind of like hut in the middle of nowhere, and these eerie energies flashing out of it, and then cut back. And finally to Tychus.
Most of the 8 weeks, Tychus is going to be in the workshop, or if not in the workshop, then in the manor grounds. He is building things. Largely, he's doing some modifications to his armour. He'll be doing some modifications to Kay's armour in an effort to effectively environmentally seal them even more and put pressure seals in there and heat baffles, that sort of stuff to try and help them survive if they end up having to go outside the ship during any of the environmental events. The main thing that he's going to be doing, though, is taking advantage of the large outside and the advanced tools here. Is he's going to be building a ship. Not a big ship, but a larger than a speeder, sized like a large Star Wars-esque van is the plan. Because what Tychus wants to build is something that can survive the heat and the pressure so that they can go through even during venting season and get there well in advance of the Empire, totally get the jump on them. And what he's looking at will probably take about 2 or 3 weeks worth of building, which is roughly what he wants, because he wants, knowing that the Doc's got to stay on planet for at least 3 weeks, he's aiming for about 4 weeks to be ready with all of this gear, because that means they've still got a good month before the Empire can get there, and then they can move on to the next galaxy. Because now that Tychus is out there in the world, away from Kina Bale, he's kind of got a bit wanderlust going on. Now that he has the chance to see all these exotic sights and exotic places, he's chafing a little being tied down to one place. And especially because as nice as the Doc's home is, he's not really able to go wandering around the capital cities. You know, it's out in the boonies. And he just doesn't quite feel comfortable out there. The fact that this world is so different to everything he's known, while he wants to go out and see it, it's all a bit too clean and refined and highbrow for Tychus. He feels like a bumpkin surrounded by scholars all the time, because I imagine that even though the Doc's wives, with the exception of Sadie, who I suspect has a kindred enthusiasm, I really get the feeling from how you've been describing Tima especially, that even when she's being welcoming and interested, there's almost a patronising air to her. Or at least that's certainly how Tychus feels how she is. You know, he just doesn't feel comfortable here. It's all too... And like with Roy being off with the kids all the time, he's feeling a bit out of sorts, so he's really pouring everything. He doesn't sleep a great deal anyway, because he's, at this stage, 18, 19 years old, full of all of that youthful energy and exuberance. He drinks an awful lot of caf, and let's be fair here, he's almost certainly got some form of ADHD. You know, he's hyper-focused on what he's building. And for the listeners, I'm very sorry, but the crafting rolls to build all the shiny things will be in a Patreon exclusive when we get around to recording that. Soz, if you're interested in listening to all the crunchy shiny bits, it's $1 a month. Just sign up for 1 month.
It's a whole show's worth of rolling dice, and this is more fun, to be honest. And we can have that bit of fun in its own little box.
What I'd like to focus on actually, Ed, if that's okay, is rather than a big crafting montage of Tychus doing his stuff, I'd like at some point over the weeks that we're here for him to be able to catch Kay in a quiet moment.
That's fine. I mean, he just come and see you a few times.
Yeah. But I think like outside of the workshop in a slightly more relaxed... I suspect probably wherever it is that they're sleeping, or in one of the many rooms in the Doc's estate.
Well, there's some wonderful gardens.
Yeah, well, he catches you in the gardens as you're walking around contemplating. And he wanders over to you, and it's all quite peaceful out there. And he just kind of... Because I imagine that Kay is walking around by himself, and Tychus kind of catches him up. And there's a few moments of companionable silence as they're just walking together, and then Tychus kind of leans over and nudges Kay with his shoulder in that kind of friendly... Not a body check. And just kind of goes, without breaking pace, kind of goes, it's going to be all right, you know. Like, it is. It's all going to be all right, mate. We've all got stuff in our past that we need to get over, and you're doing that. But, like, we're staring down the barrel of a scary future as well. And I know, I can feel that you're trying to carry that for all of us. And I get the feeling that's always what you've done. It's going to be okay, mate.
He doesn't reply immediately. There's another one of those silences, but you can see he's trying to work out how to put the sentence into words with a few failed attempts. I did some very bad things in my past, and I don't think it's something that I can atone for, because other than through very strange nexuses in temples we blow up, there's no way into the past. And I don't want that. What I'd like to do is try and offset some of this darkness that I have. And if that means that we push it as far as it can go and things break, then that's how it's going to work. That's how it's going to be. I'm not worried about the future. I'm not. I think it is going to be all right. I really do. But I'm here to make, if there is anything after this, if everything is if after we die there is something, I think I'd like to go there with an idea that I was bad, but not unredeemable. Does that make sense?
Aye, I can get that. And I don't think you are irredeemable. And you know how I know that you're not irredeemable? Because you're trying to not be irredeemable. Someone who is lost forever to the darkness doesn't care that they're lost forever to the darkness.
No.
You know?
No, I understand. I spent a long time trying to forget what I did, trying to forget how the Empire treats people and uses them as a tool. Either they're Imperial forces or the actual citizens of the Empire. But I'm not trying to forget my past anymore. I'm just trying to set my future to be something that perhaps I can be proud of.
Right. And crack a smile while you're at it, eh? And Tychus grins and gives you another kind of companionable shove.
I mean, now you're asking too much. Whatever happens, we're going to be all right. We are.
Aye,
We're
you'll be
gonna
fine.
Okay. I've never had a friend who's a droid before. You know that.
Aye, well, few people have and everyone should. Nothing finer than a droid friend. Well, except a droid family member.
Yeah. And Roy is one of us. Roy is one of our family.
And he is.
Yeah. I didn't. It's weird. In my family, in the Empire, droids are just tools, and you have opened my eyes to something important. You've opened my eyes to the fact that your family is not a thing that you are born into. Your family is something you find, and I think over these past months, it has changed me for the better. And Roy's a big part of that, and you're a big part of that, and the Doc's a big part of that.
I think the trick, and he puts like his arm around your shoulders again, kind of, and hugs you side on, still walking with you. Kind of.
Being hugged by a basilisk is amazing.
So many arms.
Yeah.
How I'm thinking of it, mate, is like this. I never met Dalen Kyrene, and I suspect I probably wouldn't have liked him if I did, but I'm pretty damn proud to be family with Kay.
Yeah, the man's a criff.
Aye.
But he woke up. I don't think he thought about anybody else, and I do. So let's do something grand and exciting and possibly really dangerous without any chance of success. But it'll look cool. We'll be cool about it, and then we'll get out of it. We'll use one of the. Maybe there's going to be another nexus in this temple, and that's our way out. Maybe there's going to be another. I'm confident.
If there's another nexus, I'm going to have to put some enhanced batteries in Roy. Drained him really quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of doing something extremely dangerous, do you want to see what I've been building? And again, his eyes go wide and light up.
And at that point, the heavens open, rain pours, and lightning, like the fields darken as the rain just comes down as you are led into this large warehouse. And I think we'll leave it there for now.
Force Majeure is played using the Star Wars Force and Destiny game system by Edge Studios. Our intro music is by the amazing Sly Fox Audio. Check out more of her work at soundcloud.com/SlyFoxAudio. Our outro music is Suburban Outlaw instrumental version by Forget the Whale, used with gratitude under a Creative Commons license. Many of the sound effects and soundscapes are created using Sirenscape, because epic games need epic sounds. If you're enjoying the show and want to support us, there's 3 ways you can do that. The first is by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/ForceMajeurePod, where for as little as $1 a month you get access to outtakes, adverts, various other stuff, and my fortnightly ramblings. You can drop us a coffee at ko-fi.com/ForceMajeurePod, or you can leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to interact with us, there's a few ways you can do that. We are on the social medias, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter as @ForceMajeurePod, and we're over on Mastodon as @ForceMajeurePod at dice.camp. You can also join our Discord, link in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening and being with us as we tell these stories. We hope you are having fun, and we will see you next time.